Hello and welcome to the 13th day of Elul. It gets just hard to keep track. I am still in Siena, Italy, and everybody else is in Portland. And actually this year I will be in Siena for Rosh Hashanah. And we've been here for Rosh Hashanah before, and it has been very interesting because this synagogue here it's not even 100% what we think of as a Sephardic synagogue, and I don't know what I'm necessarily saying because I have only maybe once been to a Sephardic synagogue, but it's a special version of Italian Sephardic tradition. And I mean, it makes sense that little communities of Judaism that didn't have as much contact as we do in the like now on an internet from having a Zoom from Italy and the United States at the same time. They didn't have the kind of communication. So communities everywhere had their own little traditions, which is why we all argue about how things go. And we know that the Talmud tried to set out like what the traditional things were that people should be doing. So for instance, when we look at the shofar calls, it never says that there's a tekiah gedolah. That's not actually specified in the Talmud. The Talmud says there's a longer sound, a long sound happens. So for instance, in the Sephardic tradition, generally, I at least as my research has shown, instead of doing a tekiah gedolah at the end of the long sequence of calls, they do a regular tekiah and then they do a truah gedolah. So the truah is the sound that goes which usually has a long note on the end, and I don't know what that means. I don't know if it means that they do lots and lots of but I'm guessing they do the staccato sequence and then a long note on the end of that. But that's not what we do in the Ashkenazic community. And as we're doing these calls here, we're trying to not do the tekiah gedolah, which is the very long note that we hold in Rosh Hashanah at the end of the calls. We try not to do it much during the Elul calls because we're not at Rosh Hashanah yet. We're trying to save something. But just this idea of the tekiah gedolah also didn't even start until maybe the mid 1500s of doing that. So it's interesting how things have evolved. And one of the things that I wanted to show you today is a little bit our imitation of what the sound of the shofar is as we heard it in the synagogue in Siena a few years ago when we did come to the Rosh Hashanah service here. And so Andrine has volunteered to show the difference in the calls. So maybe I will give the way that we do it, and then she's going to play the way that we think the imitation of what they did. So the tekiah, which is our first call, we usually kind of tail up on the end. And we think they did this. And then shivarim goes. And theirs was more like. And the one that was most remarkable to us was the difference between the truah and when we heard that, we all kind of looked at each other and were like, well, that is so not what our tradition says a tekiah, a truah is. A truah, we say it's a staccato blast. So it's very interesting to see that even as we discuss the evolution of our own traditions along whatever narrow path we're going, there's so much different Jewish tradition all over the world. So I look forward to going to these services again here in Italy, which of course it's Hebrew, not Italian, although it's weird Italian accented Hebrew. So it's a little hard to follow along, but not that confusing. Okay, maybe I'll give a report on that as we get closer in, although this is a pre-Rosh Hashanah situation. Maybe I'll talk about it at some point. Okay, so now we're going to do the calls, and I will start calling.
I just wanted to observe that there was a distinct Roman and Sephardic tradition, and they both happen in Rome. There are both Roman and Sephardic congregations, and our congregation uses the Sephardic tradition for whatever reason.
But our rabbi is from Rome,
and
right?
he can do all of them.
Right, because in fact he threw in some Ashkenazic tunes because partly he knew we were there, and there are other tourists that come to the services. So
Okay, ready to play the shofar?
okay, Dominic, you're up. You ready? Here we go. Okay, here we go. Tikia. Shivarim Trua. Tikia.
Tikia. Shvarim. Tikia.
Tikia. Trua. Tikia. Tikia. Shavarim Trua. Tikia.
Tikia. Shvarim. Tikia.
Tikia. Trua. Tikia. That was it up with a long string. Woo. We're building up that embouchure.
You have a full moon tonight.
Full moon. Exciting.
Go out and enjoy the fullness of the things.
Happy 13th day of Elul.